Welcome to the deep dive. Usually when we talk about a roommate agreement, there is this expectation of utter mundanity.
Right. It is just purely pragmatic.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're talking about who buys the toilet paper, or maybe reminders not to leave dirty dishes in the sink, or just keeping the noise down on a Tuesday night. The entire goal is just basic conflict avoidance.
It is the absolute minimum requirement for, two humans to share a kitchen without eventually tearing each other apart. It's essentially a transactional peace treaty.
A transactional peace treaty, yes, that is the perfect way to put it. It is about survival, not salvation. But then you step into the world of intentional utopian communities, and suddenly that mundane chore wheel becomes incredibly cosmic.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We were looking at a living situation where taking out the trash isn't just like a chore to check off a list. It is a direct reflection of your eternal soul.
Yeah, this is where we see the absolute blurring of the line between the profoundly sacred and the intensely, almost aggressively practical.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is to decode the blueprint of one of these communities. So today, we are opening up a single, highly specific source document.
And it is a fascinating one.
It really is. It is titled, A Poem About Civil Behaviors of Chanyuan Celestials. And it was written on July 29th, 2011 by a figure named Shufeng.
Right.
For a little context for you listening,
Yeah.
Shufeng is the founder of a modern intentional community that was originally called the Second Home. And it is now known as the New Oasis for Life.
Which is quite the rebrand.
Truly. And the people who live there, they are the Chanyuan Celestials. And this poem we're looking at serves as their ultimate behavioral manifesto.
It gives us this really incredible front row seat to the psychological architecture of a modern utopian attempt. Like, we get to see exactly how someone tries to engineer a flawless micro-society right from the ground up.
Exactly. We want to figure out how this community tries to engineer that literal perfect society by smashing together grand, universe-spanning spiritual maxims with hyper-specific everyday roommate rules.
Because they really are hyper-specific.
They are. And along the way, we want to figure out what this attempt tells you and me about the extremes of intentional living. Because this document doesn't just ask for polite cooperation. It demands a complete rewiring of how you perceive reality.
It really does. And it starts that rewiring from the very first lines, establishing this foundation that is designed to capture every possible spiritual angle.
Yeah, the document opens with this massive, sweeping theology. The text pledges its ultimate allegiance to the greatest creator. But in the exact same breath, it promises to bear in mind the teachings of Jesus, to adhere closely to the instructions of Buddha, to use Lao Tzu's words as a behavioral code, and to treat the sage's remarks as a guiding motto.
What's fascinating here is the deliberate lack of religious exclusivity. I mean, if we look at traditional religious doctrines, they often define themselves by strict boundaries.
Right, like who is in and who is out.
Exactly. They tell you who is in, who is out, and most importantly, why the other philosophy across the street is fundamentally flawed. But this document does the precise opposite. It attempts to harmonize all major historical philosophies under a single roof.
It is like writing a universal operating system for the human soul.
That is a great way to think about it.
Like, by making the source code explicitly compatible with Jesus and Buddha and Lao Tzu, they ensure no follower ever encounters an error message that forces them to look outside the commune's network.
Yes.
You extract the most appealing ideas from every major philosopher, like assembling a spiritual Avengers team, and just completely bypass the thousands of years of historical and theological conflicts between them.
And there is a vital functional reason for a utopian community to actually do that, because by claiming all of these figures, the text neutralizes external theological debate.
It makes sense.
Right. It essentially tells the follower that they never need to look outside this specific community for spiritual fulfillment, because the community has already synthesized the ultimate truth from every great teacher who ever lived.
So they have a monopoly on the truth.
Exactly. And once you accept that synthesis, the text claims your mind becomes as clear as a mirror to the heaven above and all flesh beneath.
A clear mirror. I mean, that implies a perfect, unbroken reflection of the divine right down to the physical world. There's no distortion, no static.
It suggests total spiritual transparency. If you adopt this mega theology, you lose your internal contradictions. You are no longer generating your own messy, ego-driven desires.
Right.
You are simply reflecting the will of the greatest creator.
Being a clear mirror to heaven sounds beautiful in philosophical sense. But how does a universal operating system actually tell you to do the laundry?
That is the big question.
Because translating these grand, universe-spanning philosophies into Tuesday morning chores seems like an impossible leap. Living with people is messy, and you can't just meditate your way out of scrubbing a pan.
No, you can't. And that collision between cosmic salvation and deciding who takes out the trash is where this text takes a very sharp, sudden turn into radical pragmatism.
Yeah, it really does.
The theology doesn't float above the physical world, it dictates every microscopic detail of it.
The text demands extreme economy in every conceivable area. It explicitly tells followers to value the labor involved in each inch of silk.
Every inch.
They're instructed to keep a spotless living space, avoid all luxury, never amass wealth by unfair means, and completely refuse to contend with others for profits.
Notice how the physical environment is tethered directly to the spiritual environment here. The text makes an explicit causal link. It says, I shall have a clean and tidy place to live in. I shall have a clean and beautiful soul. Yeah, having a clean room isn't just a preference. It is the physical manifestation of your spiritual purity. The state of your floorboards proves the state of your soul.
Tidy space, tidy mind is one thing. But the environmental rules push this into a whole different psychological realm entirely. The text mandates protecting flowers and birds. You cannot eat wildlife.
Which is pretty standard for utopian communes.
Sure, and it commands you to eat less meat in general, specifically to avoid harm of character. But the most striking mechanism is how it defines your relationship to the natural world. It states that all grass and wood are relatives and friends, and that insects and birds are life companions.
Just consider the cognitive load of that kind of anthropomorphism for a second.
It's massive.
If you truly internalize the belief that a tree is your relative and a beetle on the sidewalk is your life companion, your daily walk through the courtyard becomes an exercise in intense, perpetual empathy.
I would be terrified of stepping on a relative.
Right. You have to navigate the physical world with the exact same care you would use navigating a crowded room of your loved ones. The community is engineering a state of constant hyper-awareness regarding your impact on every living thing around you.
Navigating a sidewalk would be exhausting. But I guess it also sounds profoundly gracious in a way. You are constantly extending grace to a blade of grass or a beetle, which makes the text's sudden pivot regarding human labor so shocking to me.
Yes, the tonal shift is intense.
It is wild. While you are treating an insect with the utmost grace, the text is utterly brutal toward humans who don't perform their chores perfectly.
The contrast is intentionally severe.
It demands that members strive for absolute perfection in their daily work. And it states explicitly that anyone who makes things in a rough and slipshod manner is, and I'm quoting the text directly here, worthless trash.
Worthless trash?
How do we reconcile this? Like, how do you have this intense zero-tolerance pressure for perfection on one hand and this ultra-peaceful vibe of calling a bug your life companion on the other?
The key to understanding that tension goes right back to the clear mirror concept we talked about earlier. If every single action you take is a reflection of the divine, then there are no small, mundane actions.
Every chore is a big deal.
Exactly. Sweeping the floor is a sacred duty. Therefore, doing it lazily or in a slipshod manner isn't just a minor annoyance to your roommates. It is a fundamental spiritual failure.
Oh, I see. You aren't just being a bad roommate. You are actively desecrating the utopian project.
Yes, you are introducing chaos and imperfection into the second home. You're smudging the mirror, essentially. The extreme empathy for nature and the extreme harshness toward lazy human labor stem from the exact same root belief. Every interaction has cosmic weight.
Because it's all connected to the divine.
Right. A bug is a creation of the divine, so you respect it. Your chore is a mandate of the divine, so you perfect it. The text uses incredibly harsh language like worthless trash to ensure that the internal discipline required to maintain this system remains ironclad.
The stakes for doing a bad job on the dishes are literally existence-level stakes, which is stressful. But if the community applies that kind of zero-tolerance cosmic pressure to how you sweep the floor, that same standard has to apply to how you speak to the person sweeping next to you, right?
It spills over entirely. If the physical environment requires absolute perfection to reflect heaven, the social environment requires absolute, meticulously engineered harmony.
And the rules for that are just as intense. The text lays down incredibly rigid rules for interpersonal behavior. It mandates respecting the elderly, loving the young, and sympathizing with the weak. It completely forbids factions, which I know is a classic utopian safeguard.
Definitely.
But it also bans gossip entirely and probing into anyone's privacy.
It systematically targets and outlaws the most common friction points of human coexistence. If you ban gossip, you eliminate a huge source of interpersonal drama.
It even dictates your volume. Like you have to welcome guests with smiles, be civil in speech, and use no vulgar words. At night, you must speak quietly and make no noise whatsoever to preserve the peace.
No heavy footsteps allowed.
Exactly.
Mhm.
There's also a very specific call-out regarding gender dynamics that stood out to me. The text explicitly states that riding roughshod over women is not allowed in the home.
Right, and including that specific mandate establishes a baseline of physical and social safety within this highly structured environment. It attempts to mandate respect from the top down. But, setting rules for polite volume and basic respect only goes so far.
Because people are still people.
Exactly. Where the social engineering becomes truly radical is how the text handles the inevitable reality of human conflict. People are going to get annoyed. Resentment is going to happen.
Oh, definitely.
Mhm.
And when resentment does happen, the protocol they use is wild. The text states, and here is the quote, "In case of resentment, I shall quickly look into my own conscience. I shall not shift blames onto others, but find out where I have gone wrong."
That single sentence is the core psychological mechanism keeping the entire social structure intact.
It is so heavy. I want you, the listener, to imagine applying this exact rule to your own life for a second. Think about your next family gathering, or maybe a workplace dispute where a colleague clearly steals your idea or speaks over you in a meeting.
We have all been there.
Right. Imagine being mandated by the core laws of your universe to immediately assume that you are the one at fault in that situation.
It is a radical internalization of conflict. By requiring that the individual must always look inward and find their own fault when resentment arises, the community effectively outlaws the very concept of an interpersonal dispute.
Because you can't fight if no one fights back.
You cannot have a two-sided argument if one side is required by divine law to take all the blame before the argument even begins.
But doesn't that just create a massive psychological pressure cooker? I mean, enforcing mandatory self-blame might create quiet hallways, but does it create true harmony? It just sounds like a mechanism designed to bottle up natural human frustration until a person eventually explodes, or at the very least develops a terrible ulcer.
You are identifying the inherent danger of this exact model. From the perspective of the group's stability, the mechanism is brilliant. It completely neutralizes complaints because no one can complain. Right. It prevents factions from forming because you can't recruit allies to your side of an argument if you are legally required to admit you are wrong. It stops small grievances over dirty dishes from snowballing into community-destroying drama. If everyone swallows their own resentment, the collective surface remains perfectly undisturbed.
The utopian system survives, but only because the individual is metabolizing all of the stress.
Yes. Psychologically, it is incredibly demanding. It removes the mechanism for holding other people accountable. If someone wrongs you and your only recourse is to figure out where you went wrong, you are systematically stripping away your own personal boundaries.
Which sounds so damaging.
It creates a surface-level peace. You get a polite community where no one ever raises their voice. But it is a peace purchased through the complete subjugation of individual grievance.
So we have this community meticulously engineering its internal world. They have synthesized all major religions, so no one looks outside for truth. They treat bugs as life companions. They execute chores with terrifying zero-tolerance perfectionism. And they swallow all their own resentment to keep the social waters perfectly still.
It's a lot of spinning plates.
It is.
Yes.
But a community like this doesn't exist in a vacuum. How does this group view its place in the broader outside world? Because they still have to exist within a country and an economy.
They do, and this is where the text addresses their civic duty. It reveals a really fascinating paradox regarding what they do with human ambition.
The text sets very clear boundaries for interacting with the state. It strictly commands members not to violate the statutes of the country. They are aiming for total legal compliance. But then it adds a highly specific command regarding personal drive members must absolutely refrain from being a careerist.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, banning careerism requires a massive re-engineering of human motivation. A careerist is someone driven by professional advancement, the accumulation of wealth, and societal status.
Sure.
In the modern outside world, those desires are the primary engines of human behavior.
It's the rat race. It's the innate human desire to climb a ladder and prove your worth through status symbols.
And this text deliberately dismantles that latter. It explicitly reinforces that members must not amass wealth or envy luxury. But when you remove traditional external ambition, you leave a massive motivational vacuum in the human psyche.
You have to give them something else to do.
You have to give people something else to strive for, or the community just stagnates.
And the text tells us exactly what is supposed to fill that vacuum. Instead of climbing the corporate ladder, your daily life should be spent working hard at study, solving puzzles, and building up experience and wisdom. On the spiritual side, you are instructed to confess, pray, cleanse your soul, and hold the greatest creator in esteem and awe in the vast universe.
So they replace vertical societal ambition with vertical spiritual ambition. You are no longer trying to become a vice president or a CEO. You are trying to become a flawless Chanyuan celestial.
The grind just looks different.
Exactly. The immense human energy that would normally go into competing for a promotion or buying a bigger house is redirected into perfecting your internal character, studying texts, and maintaining the pristine harmony of the second home. The status game changes from who has the most money to who is the most humble and who sweeps the courtyard with the most divine perfection.
So what does this all mean for the actual survival of the group? Like if an entire community gives up personal ambition, if no one is a careerist, no one is competing for profit, and everyone's energy is channeled into studying, solving puzzles, praying, and doing immaculate chores, how does the community sustain itself economically?
It is a profound tension.
Because they want to be compliant, productive citizens of a country while completely checking out of the economic reality of the modern rat race.
It is the ultimate utopian dilemma. By refusing to contend for profit and rejecting the careerist mindset, they successfully insulate themselves from the corruption and the endless stress of the outside world. But by doing so, they severely limit their own resources. They are not generating massive external wealth.
Which means they have to stretch whatever resources they do have to the absolute limit.
Which brings us right back to the hyper-specific chores. Their economic survival relies entirely on extreme frugality. That mandate to value every inch of silk, to reuse every drop of water, to avoid all luxury, it isn't just about spiritual purity.
Oh, I see.
It is forced economic necessity disguised as theology. Their survival as a community depends on their ability to perfectly execute this highly frugal, diligent lifestyle. If they become lazy, if they start doing things in a slipshod manner, the fragile economic ecosystem of the commune simply collapses.
Oh, wow. The harshness makes perfect sense now. Calling someone worthless trash for a sloppy chore isn't just about them smudging the spiritual mirror. It's about them threatening the literal survival of the group. The theology dictates the chores dictate the economy, and the mandatory self-blame ensures no one ever argues about any of it.
It is a brilliantly locked, airtight system of behavioral design. Every rule reinforces another rule, creating a self-sustaining loop that isolates the community from both external conflict and internal rebellion.
We have spent this deep dive unpacking a truly unique blueprint for a perfect society. We've explored how Xu Feng's 2011 poem attempts to construct a utopia by blending the greatest hits of world religion with impossibly strict rules about noise, revering insects, performing perfect labor, and swallowing your own pride to maintain engineered harmony.
And the takeaway for you listening to this isn't necessarily about judging whether the Chanyuan Celestial specific model is a success or a failure. The real value is observing the sheer power of intentionality. Even if you have no desire to move to an intentional community, the thought experiment of designing your behavior, your physical environment, and your conflict resolution so deliberately is an incredible tool. It forces you to look at your own life and ask, what are my unwritten rules? Where am I letting my own actions become slipshod?
But just when you think you have this entire rigid, hyper-controlled system figured out, the source document throws one last, massive curveball. I want to leave you with one final, mind-bending detail from the very last line of Xu Feng's poem, because it flips the context of everything we just talked about entirely on its head.
It completely reframes the psychological burden of the text.
It does. After pages and pages of incredibly strict, universe-altering rules about avoiding all noise, never gossiping, treating every blade of grass with intense reverence, and the threat of being labeled worthless trash if you fail, Xu Feng finishes the manifesto with this sentence: "Of all things, only life is true. Proceed as if in a game, and the cultivation of celestial being and the way will succeed."
Proceed as if in a game.
Proceed as if in a game. So I want to leave you with this final question to ponder on your own today. How can a person follow impossibly strict, heavily engineered rules while simultaneously treating life as if in a game? Does treating life like a game relieve the psychological pressure, making it easier to endure those impossible rules and the mandatory self-blame? Or does it mean that the rules themselves actually matter less than the joy of simply playing the game? When you look back at the messy, pragmatic roommate agreements and compromises of your own everyday life, maybe it is all just cosmic play after all.